Hare Krishna, thanks a lot for joining. Let's start with our regular prayers. Om Agyanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschat Desha Tarine. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Shri Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. I'm sharing my screens. Let me know once it is visible. Okay, I'm sharing to start with chapter 13. Just a quick review from the past session. So we discussed quite interesting things because this was the first chapter in the last part of Bhagavad Gita, which is called as Jnana Yoga. And in that, we discussed quite a few concepts, particularly understanding what is this material nature, who is the enjoyer, what is the field of influence, who is actually knower, and understanding, and a few more things. I wanted to highlight few important points here. Is the field of influence is not just our body, but with this body and mind and intelligence, what all things we can accomplish realistically. That's a field of influence. Then again, the field of influence, it's not limited to just what we see around. It is actually spread across space and time. So even if somebody has passed away, but his teachings can still influence future from time perspective. And of course, the field means what all things we can practically change. So this field of influence or kshetra concept is very, very dynamic in Bhagavad Gita. And while discussing this, Krishna talks about importance of qualities which we need to develop to uh, better our field of influence. So we have some field of influence and some field of concern. So as the phases of life keeps on shifting, our field of influence also keep on shifting. How to excel in our field of influence is discussed with these qualities. And we also discussed link between soul and prakriti. So particularly, we also discussed that the soul is the one who is actually trying to enjoy various fruits, as you can see in this picture. And Paramatma sitting next to it is actually just observing. And if he wants, any soul wants, then he guides as well. Then we also understood the concept of super soul more in depth, how he's sitting in heart and how he is kind of a one entity, although he's spread across universe in everybody's heart. We also discussed process of realizing Paramatma through Dhyana Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Nishkam Karma Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga as well. So while doing these particular processes, we cultivate specific knowledge, we perform actions without desires, and when we are able to hear it with submissiveness, this process of spiritual knowledge, it helps us to graduate to next level. Now, this is the slide which I wanted to highlight, that in this process of transmigration, there was this mention of three modes of nature. So we discussed about how the soul and super soul with the entire subtle mind, ego, intelligence, this full combination, when he has to change his body at the time of death specifically, then whatever his psychophysical nature he has developed over a period of time, based on that, the target he is going to acquire. And the target body is not just what we see from outside, the subtle nature, like tiger has its own nature, or some demigods or some species, they have their own nature. So depending on what psychophysical nature we are developing and what kind of modes of nature we are acquiring, we tend to get that body. And today's chapter, we are going to focus primarily on understanding these three modes of nature. And then we ended previous chapter understanding how to expand the consciousness beyond body and how it helps us to achieve the supreme goal, that is the Paramatma realization. So while we're discussing about this particular chapter, let me just share now today's primary slides from chapter 14. Okay. So this chapter is also called as Gunatraya Vibhaga Yoga. Gunatraya means three. There are three types of gunas. Now, what is this guna? Guna means it's actually a psychophysical nature. You can take it as a mode, in which mode we are operating. So in Gita, Prabhupada translates guna as a mode. Traya Vibhag means three parts. And then this is a yoga. Yoga means, of course, we are trying to connect with these three gunas. Now, while starting this chapter, this is the 14th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, and particularly second chapter of Jnana Yoga. And Krishna gives very interesting concepts here. Now, this is very important to understand these three different types of gunas, because based on this understanding, the chapter 15, 16, 17, or even 18 is actually the first part of 18. It depends on thorough understanding of these gunas. So Krishna says that this knowledge enables, it has already in past enabled all the sages to attain supreme perfection. So when we understand these gunas, because day in, day out, we are actually working with this psychophysical nature, which keeps on shifting between three different parameters. And we'll look into that close soon. So Krishna says that this then he says this particular knowledge actually about understanding three gunas, if you understand how it is actually working, how can I overcome that, and then how can I actually use it for progressive advantage. All these concepts are discussed in this particular chapter. So attending transcendental nature. So what is the advantage, prime advantage of this particular knowledge is actually it's attending transcendental nature. And what is this transcendental nature and how it helps? After attending this kind of nature, one doesn't have to take a birth, and more importantly, he is not disturbed at the time of dissolution. Dissolution means even at the time of death, he is in full knowledge. What is happening with me? Where am I going? All these things will be very much clear, and he is not scared with any kind of uncertainty that, oh God, where am I going to land? So he is very much clear about his target destination. Now, starting this 14.3, Krishna actually starts explaining some important concepts we had gone through in past, but we'll just touch briefly them. So this Brahman is actually the area between spiritual world and material world. Many Mayavadis, Brahmavadis, they want to go and merge in um, that particular, I would say, area or nothingness, whatever they want to call it. But that Brahman, this is actually not a very spiritual substance. It's a material substance again. And I mean, um, when this Brahman comes in touch with the material world, it has very inert qualities. The Bhagavatam has more description in that. But the same Brahman becomes Pradhana. And this Pradhana, when this Pradhana is entered into the material world, it's called as material nature. So there are this same Brahman, it acquires different qualities, Pradhana and material nature. And this material nature, as we had discussed, that different universes are getting created and destroyed and again created, destroyed. So in the past iteration of creation, whatever qualities, modes of nature, or whatever the karma account, all these souls have acquired, based on that, they derive the next birth in this particular universe, and then cycle of birth and death continues in this universe till the time they are not able to pick up devotional service and go back to Godhead. So this material universe, Krishna says that he impregnates, and it is understood that all species of life, I mean, depending on karma, as we discussed, depending on psychophysical nature, soul can enter in different species, even tree life, animal life, human life, demigod life, whatever it is. And they are made possible by birth in this material nature. And why Krishna is called seed giving father is because all the souls, when the material worlds are destroyed, they reside in Krishna's body as a Mahavishnu. And when the universes are again created, these souls are again put back into these universes. That's why he's called as seed giving father. So now once in the universe, now let's focus primarily on this. What is this material conditioning and modes of nature? So of course there are these basic three modes of nature: the goodness, passion, and ignorance. So if you want to color any picture, or if you want, even in the computer language, you have this RGB, the red, blue, and green. With these three color combinations, you can create whatever colors one may want. So material nature also consists of these three modes: goodness, passion, and ignorance. We will discuss more about these qualities in the next slides. But when they come in the contact with the nature, sometimes goodness can be more passionless, ignorant, moderate, or depending on what is more prominent, that combination decides the psychophysical nature. So whenever soul gets into, so soul is actually is a spiritual entity, body is very material entity, and this material conditioning is what makes completely spiritual entity acclimatize or get conditioned into this particular body. So these modes of nature, they play a very vital role in assuming some personality. So these three modes of material nature are means by which spiritual soul gets conditioned. And is it possible to select which nature we want to be in? Now, this selecting part, is it in our hands or it is just governed? Because this modes of material nature, if you see, morning time is in mode of comparatively goodness, the daytime is in passion, night is in ignorance. Even the places, temples generally are in mode of goodness. Then office places or places where people are want to create something or want to earn something, that those places are of course in mode of passion. And then night bars or whatever the places, of course there are a list of them, casinos and all of them, they are in mode of ignorance. So time, places, circumstances, consciousness, everything has these categories of goodness, passion, and ignorance. We Can we decide what kind of nature we want to be in? This is the important question. And it is very much related to this nature of exclusive, unalloyed, or unfailing devotional service. So it's very much connected to nature of devotional service as well. We'll touch this concept at the end of this presentation. So before that, let's understand whether we can really choose, and more importantly, what is these three things. So sattva or mode of goodness is actually the thing which maintains one's existence. So without, one cannot say nobody is devoid of existence. Very fact is he is living and continuing his life. There has to be an element of sattva in that. And most importantly, this sattva is actually this part, somebody who is in this mode. So operating mode, you can translate that way also, or somebody is in this particular guna, he is actually free from all the sins, because this sattva or goodness mode, his mind is very peaceful, he can take proper decisions, his responses are calculated, and he is knowledgeable. Such a person who is in primarily in mode of goodness doesn't commit mistakes, and he is guided by this mode of goodness, and he is very much connected to the Paramatma also directly. So this mode of goodness is in a very happy state, and person understands what is what. He is looking to understand more knowledge, put that into his daily life and practice and become better version. And he over a period of time acquires all the nice qualities to excel in this particular material world. So this is a sattva mode. The next is rajas. Rajas means somebody is like, he wants to have some great accomplishment. Now, desire is nothing wrong to have something good accomplished, but that desire of competitiveness, excelling somebody else, when that desire becomes prominent much more than even sattva uh, quantity, then this rajas mode leads to unlimited, uncontrollable desires. So the guy might be just browsing the list of all billionaires in the world, or who's who list, Fortune 500, this and that, aiming that one day I'll become millionaire, and very soon then I'll become billionaire, and then trillionaire or whatever. So all his actions, they are all, everything he calculates, what am I going to get out of this? All his relationships, all his investments, his time, everything he'll just calculate, what am I going to get out of this? There's nothing to do with the self-realization, nothing to do with helping others as well. And whatever he acquires, he is extremely attached, thinking that this is mine, this should stay with me, and this should grow, and this should become much better than somebody else. There are more description comes in this rajas mode in later chapters, but overall I think you understand this rajas, it involves a lot of intense endeavor and hankering, and a lot of greed is involved. Sometimes it may get fulfilled, sometimes it may not get fulfilled. If it is fulfilled, person becomes too much proud and think that I did it. If it is not fulfilled, then he is angry. I deserved, and some because of blame game of this and that person, it is taken away from me. So this is completely in mode of passion. Then what is this tamas, the mode of ignorance? It's also very interesting mode because we need ignorance. I'll discuss this at the end of this slide. But generally in mode of ignorance is something where person doesn't, he's not very conscious of what is happening around him, or he's extremely lazy to make any changes in his life, or very prominent symptom of this mode of tamas is that this guy just are attached to status quo or just inertia. Whatever is going on, let it go on. They don't want any changes, they don't want any improvements. And this mode of tamas, slowly it actually drags one's consciousness down towards madness and illusion. Why madness and illusion? Because they are not passionate enough to improve, or they are not keeping things in knowledgeable manner. So this thing actually, over a period of time, they concoct their own philosophy, and with this ignorance, they technically they feel they are knowledgeable, but other people can see that this mode is dragging somebody to madness. And we are shifting between sattva, rajas, tamas in these three modes all the time. If we are not watchful, if we are not focused, then we are just carried away by these modes of nature. Now, I mentioned one point that we need all these three different types of natures at specific times in specific quantities. The tamas, for example, if somebody doesn't have tamas at all, even in sleep, this guy just thinking of a few things, planning some investments and then stocks and this and other plans or whatever. So lack of tamas makes person, too much tamas also makes person mad, and lack of tamas also makes person restless. So for to sharpen our intellect, to do things in a proper manner, we have to sleep certain amount of time, because Krishna says regulations. It also comes that we have to we have to regulate the things in our life. So we need sleep. We need certain level of tamas in our life, but that tamas is targeted tamas. The other type of tamas, by drinking liquor or having some kind of substances or weeds or whatever, that kind of tamas definitely just destroys the consciousness. The rajas mode, thinking that I am the doer and I am accomplished and I am going to do everything, again this particular thing leads to miserable situation, because 90% time we don't get what we are planning for. But this sattva or mode of goodness is very illuminating mode. In that mode, even if we don't get what we want, we understand the reason behind it and we can be composed. So it's very important to understand this distinction between sattva, rajas and tamas. Now, there are two important factors concerning this rajas, sattva, and tamas: this action and reaction. What kind of action we perform in mode of goodness and what result it leads to. So this is very much related, or we just now discussed in the previous section as well. So result of pious action is pure. Pious action means one who is intention itself, starting intention itself. Let me do something good for others. Let me elevate my own consciousness, or let me earn some nice knowledge which will help me in future. So result of this pious action is, because intention is pure, the result is it's also eliminating and it's in mode of goodness. But the action which is done in passion, as we discussed, is results in misery. Why? Even if I achieve whatever I want, it is making so much, make me so much of proud and so much mad about illusioning about my own status, that I'm definitely destined to fall on my face in the next miserable cycle or next cycle of execution. So this mode of passion always leads to misery. And of course, what we discussed is mode of ignorance is just an foolishness, where person, I mean, in mode of passion also person can do calculation what he wants and what he doesn't want. In mode of ignorance, person has zero control over consciousness and he just in mode of some illusory world, and that's pure foolishness. So that's about action. What about the results? So mode of goodness, what we get is a real knowledge. Real. It's not some speculative knowledge. The mode of goodness means we are actually approaching bona fide people. We are approaching bona fide scriptures or bona fide sources and acquiring knowledge from them. It leads to real knowledge, mode of goodness. From passion, the greed develops, and from ignorance is a foolishness and madness. So it's not that we can say this person is in goodness, that guy is in rajas, not like that. So each of us, like we discussed the three RGB colors, they generate billions of colors. So similarly, these three modes, they generate many varieties of psychophysical natures, and that is been acquired by different species, um, different places, different circumstances as well. So these colors or these modes of material nature, they're actually spread across world within people, as well as we can see them everywhere. But one thing is there, that since knowledge leads to goodness, if one somebody's after acquiring knowledge, somebody puts this knowledge into practice, and then he is able to increase the quota of goodness, then the more goodness, his decisions will be more in a very sane consciousness. His words, what he speaks, the way he the way he impacts others consciousness, and the way he utilizes the end result as well, everything results in a it results in a elevating manner. So the more we can somehow other put effort to increase the goodness in our activities, the quality of results becomes much better. Now, this particular slide, it deals with very important factor about this realizing Paramatma part. So while all these activities are happening, so if you can connect to the particular slide, I'm just, am I sharing the 13th chapter also? Oh, I closed it. Okay. Anyway, so from, uh, sorry. Yeah. So what we discussed is, um, while we are performing our activities, when we can understand we as a spirit soul, we just have desire, but that actually that desire is getting sanctioned by Paramatma and is actually carried out by outside world, that is a material mode of nature. So it's not just a nature which is or Prakriti which is carrying out. The modes of nature, they are making the things move. So if one is able to see that all activities are carried out externally, whatever is I am seeing, everything is actually carried out by modes of nature, and he knows the role of Paramatma, and that Paramatma is beyond these modes of nature. He is not affected by whatever is happening around him. So all this knowledge, it helps one to transcend these modes of nature because he understands how these are working. Of course, then with that knowledge also comes how I should not get entangled in this prison of these three modes. And this helps him to become free from this birth, death, old age, and disease. And all these, whatever distresses one may perceive in this bodily format, they are mainly because one is identifying with the material modes of nature. And one doesn't have to die to experience it. Krishna says that if we are realizing this knowledge, if we are striving to develop the quantum of goodness within us, then we can actually enjoy nectar even in this life itself. So this illumination is actually a very interesting concept. And what it leads to, it's a host of nice qualities. That's very important. So uh, what happens is the person who is actually understanding with this knowledge, and then he's trying to apply this knowledge. So there are some list of things Krishna speaks from verse 22 to 25 in this particular chapter. The very important part is, O son of Pandu, that means Arjuna, one who does not hate illumination, that is goodness, attachment, passion, and delusion, that is ignorance. One who does not hate these different modes when they are present, or he is not excessively longing for them when they are disappearing. So, very first thing is somebody is not getting affected. He is not hating it or understanding that the mode in which I am keeping in, it's related to my body, but my consciousness and my thought process can be still above than all these modes. I could be surrounded by very tamasic atmosphere, very tamasic time, but it depends on me in which how I want to maintain my consciousness. So one who is unwavering and undisturbed through these reactions, then remaining neutral and transcendental, knowing that the modes alone are active. So who is not getting effectively affected by these different types of modes, and who is regarding this happiness, distress, the stone, piece of gold, everything with an equal eye. So that means he is having very equal vision towards everything. Who is a steady and situated equally well in present, blame, honor, dishonor, and he who treats even the friends and enemies equally. Such a person is said to be have transcended the modes of nature. So this is the end result of transcending modes of nature. So first thing, he is not getting disturbed by different modes, and no matter what is happening, he is not getting affected by happiness and distress which is coming from that interactions, and his own interaction towards others, whether it's a friend or enemy, they are always for the benefit of others. So such a person is considered to be transcended into the modes of nature. And what it leads to ultimately, that a person who is in this modes of goodness, he's said to be in the on the level of Brahman, because Brahman is actually is very purely knowledgeable substance. One who is in Brahman means he has a full knowledge. He's that eternity and knowledge. These two elements are there in the Brahman. So one who engages in devotional service. Now, this devotional service we had discussed in depth from chapter 9 to 12, and automatically his consciousness is even beyond this passion, ignorance, and goodness. It's even beyond goodness. So material goodness leads one to progress in in this material world. But beyond goodness, if somebody is actually thinking, how can I serve the Lord? How can I help others also to realize this knowledge and perfect the purpose of their life? So one who is constantly thinking in on that level, on the pure devotional service, it is automatic. It's like he will not fail, because if somebody is maintaining his consciousness on the pure devotional level, is beyond all these three levels, and that struggle to be in the goodness, it will cease to exist. Because every time we struggle to be in a goodness, it's not an easy decision. So many temptations, so many challenges keep on coming, which drags us to passion and then ignorance. But if we are sticking to the platform beyond goodness, that actually helps us to maintain our consciousness on much higher level. So this goodness helps us to elevate our platform on the Brahman platform. And Krishna says in this last sloka of this chapter that he is a basis of this impersonal Brahman, which is immortal, imperishable, and eternal. So as the last slide of this particular session, I would like to reiterate the essence of what we discussed about these modes. And understanding them is very much important to understand how we are leading life, how our thought process is going to affect us, how we are getting affected by others' thought processes, and how to save ourselves and how to excel in that situation. All these things are very much dependent in understanding these modes of nature. So let's go through them quickly. The first, death, okay, or destination. I'll just combine them together. So any destination means maybe existence in this particular life, and death means particularly destination beyond death. So if somebody is living their body in mode of goodness, he will progress to the higher planet of sages, because he's looking towards goodness, he's struggling, striving, liking the mode of goodness. He'll progress to higher planets. What about the passion? One who is just want to acquire things and um, greedy about everything, trampling everybody, just bulldozing his way, and he just wants to prove his points everywhere. And this passionate people who wants lot of honor, lot of respect. For such people, unfortunately, higher planet is not there. Higher planet is for sages who already are illuminated with knowledge. But for passionate people, they continue their existence on these earthly planets where the struggle of life is there, day in, day out, always there. And how about the people who die in the ignorance, or who are continuing their existence in the ignorance? What is their destination? They actually somehow spiral down towards the hellish worlds or even animal kingdom. Animal kingdom is also not considered to be very great, because They do not have this sense of discrimination. They cannot take intelligent decisions. So many restrictions are there, and self-realization is out of question. So this animal kingdom, it leads primarily because these souls in their past life, they had misused the opportunity, whatever resources, time they had got, in indulging the things which are increasing the ignorance. So they are spending maximum time in ignorance. Their destination is granted accordingly. Let's discuss about action and result. We already discussed about the pious action. It leads to pure intention, and it, after whatever result happens, it leads to real knowledge. The next is, what about passionate people? The very fact that the actions, they are miserable, because whether they are getting whatever they want it or not, they are just they just want it more and more, never satisfied. It's miserable actually, and it leads to more and more greed. And how about the ignorance? Again, it leads to foolishness and madness. So we discussed about this particular concepts and how it applies in day-to-day life, dissecting our faith based on this goodness, passion, ignorance, dissecting the our existence, our desires, aspiration, lifestyle, everything will be discussed in the next chapters. We still have 5-6 minutes to go. So before going through the summary, if somebody has any questions, please feel free to ask. Actually, had somebody had pasted one question I saw the last time, that how to identify a bona fide spiritual master. One of the quality of a bona fide spiritual master is, I'll answer this question in 2 minutes, that he is definitely not looking anything for himself, not any glory for himself. First thing, he's in love with God. He is in so much love with God, and he's enjoying that connection, that he wants to share that connection with God to everybody else. That is a very first quality of a bona fide spiritual master, that he is self-realized and he is enjoying his own connection with the God. The second part is, I mean, the only great student can be a great teacher. So he can be a great spiritual master if he himself is a great student of his own spiritual master. And like that, his spiritual master can be great, provided that person is also a great student of his own spiritual master. So this disciplic succession is very, very important, which is directly connecting to the disciplic succession of God. So Krishna gave the knowledge to Arjuna, and then this knowledge is given. The whole disciplic succession is mentioned at the start of this Gita. So person should be in love with the God. He should be in disciplic succession. And the third most important point is, he has deep compassion for others. Without that compassion, nobody can share this knowledge with others. So the person who is very much compassionate to share this knowledge with others, and he's in a genuine welfare, looking for the to take out the other souls of this miserable situation, such a person means he himself is enlightened. Whatever he speaks is aligned with other sages, guru, sadhu, shastra. He himself is putting a lot of efforts in understanding all this philosophy. He's practicing all of that in his daily life. His austere life or his renounced life, sacrifice life is visible. And third, he's also compassionate. He is not a military personnel who is just firing everyone. He is compassionate, and depending on time, place, circumstance, he is sharing this knowledge to others. So these are the important qualities of a spiritual master. So before starting the quick summary of this chapter, if there is any other question, please feel free to ask. Just unmute yourself and ask. Okay, then if not, let's quickly go through what we discussed today. So the first of all, this knowledge, it actually helps us to achieve a supreme perfection. How? Because after knowing all the modes of nature, we can decide in which mode our responses, our consciousness, irrespective of what is happening or in which time zone we are in, we can decide to be in the mode of goodness. So this helps one to achieve that supreme perfection. He is not disturbed because he is very much confident I have led my life in such a manner. So my destination, whatever Lord has arranged, must be much more than what I expect. He's always in gratitude mode, so he's not disturbed at all. Then Krishna gives little technical background about how this Brahman becomes Pradhan and then material nature, and how the living entities, when they come in contact with this material nature, once they acquire material nature, then they keep on transmigrating from one life to another. We saw that process of transmigration in the previous chapter. Now, to understand this three modes of material nature, that is goodness, passion, and ignorance, we understood how the soul comes in touch with those nature once he acquires that psychophysical nature, then how he is living, what is he doing, what he is speaking, everything depends on that nature. If he is not putting an extraordinary effort to come out of the natural modes of nature, then the person is like a waves. He's just going. So you may find the same person. Sometimes he's speaking very nice. Sometimes he's unable to control his rage. Sometimes he is just indulging himself. So depending on modes of nature, people's nature may go up and down. Animals particularly have zero control over in which mode they want to be. But as a human, we have intelligence, we have sense of discrimination, we have capability how we want to respond, and importantly to make a decision in which state our consciousness to be. So all of this we can use in which mode we want to be. And the last point which mentioned in this slide is when we are in devotional service, we are automatically above these three modes of material nature, and then it becomes very easy to transmigrate them. So we discussed more about this sattva rajastama, what happens when each mode, what kind of consciousness we are in, what kind of efforts we are putting, what kind of results we are expecting. So, and what it leads to. So we discussed all of this. And we also discussed import. We need to be in rajas mode. So Arjuna, when he was fighting on the battlefield, some rajas had to be there. Some tamas we need in life. And of course, maximum sattva we need in life. We also discussed about action reaction depending on these different modes of nature. We discussed importantly the role of Paramatma and how we can even realize Paramatma in this after transcending this mode of nature while being in this body itself. We discussed important quality, how we should be above these modes while navigating through these particular modes. We also discussed advantage goodness, that how it helps us to achieve the constitutional position. And finally, we also talked about different destinations, different types of actions and their results while discussing these different three modes. So thanks a lot for your attention.